Hey guys, so back with another episode of Sparring Narration. And in this episode of Sparring Narration, I'm going to be showing you guys a breakdown of arm drag that I like to do into a pass and then into a mount and then finally into an arm bar. I'll talk a little bit about how I sort of set things up. And then I'll take the video back and I'll talk about some of the things that my partner could have done in order to defend it a little better. So let's go ahead and let's start the video. So this is one of our purple belts here. It's bigger than me. I think he's probably around like 210, 215 or so. We're doing some grip fighting here. And I go into the arm drag right here. So I'll just pause it for a sec and we'll take it back here. Great little tip here. Whenever somebody is grip fighting you like this, and obviously we started this round on the knees, but just in general, let's say that you're in a tournament or you're in a sparring situation and they're grip fighting, you never want to let them get control over your legs. You don't want two hands on your body, two hands controlling your gi. You always want to be breaking those grips. You always want to be establishing your own grips and then attacking right back. And here you'll see I grab a hold of his hand to get that grip off. Once that grip has been loosened, I then transition into the arm drag. And I do it right away. So I'm going to take my right arm and I'm immediately going to drag. What you can't see here is that my left arm is on his wrist, holding his wrist as I get ready to drag him over. Here comes the drag. Immediately he loses his balance. And when I take it back, I'll sort of talk a little bit about some of the things he could have done to keep his balance there. As soon as I come up on top, I immediately go into the pass. I do not wait. Don't wait. To get your game good and to get your game to the next level, you want it to be seamless. So you hit one move, you immediately go into the next move, and you're immediately thinking about advancing into some sort of finishing position. And we'll take it back here, and you'll see drag, pass, mount. Now, right here, I immediately have my left hand on his hip. By keeping my left hand on his hip, it prevents him from hip escaping away. It gives me a lot of control. I'm on my toes here. All my weight is being transferred into my arms, which keeps his hips down and keeps his hips from moving on me. I grab my right arm to grab his left leg. I'm grabbing up top by his knee and his pant leg. I kick my left leg back out and I step right around. What this allows me to do is allows me to get around his legs, keep him pinned in that same position, and end up in a really good spot to transition into the mount. I go knee on belly as soon as I pass. I go right into the mount from here. And I immediately start to go for the arms. I start to raise the arms up. Now at this point in time, my partner, he's been a little overwhelmed here because I did the moves in succession as quickly as possible, and I'm immediately going for the attack. That's where you've got to get your game at, guys. You've got to have everything ready to go as it starts to move. I've raised his arms up above his head, and now I'm going into the S-mount position to go for the armbar. So let me take it a little back. And you'll see here, we'll go a little further back. As I'm raising his arms up, you're going to notice how I position my arms is really, really important. I want to have the crook of my elbow over by the crook of his elbow. I don't want to be trying to raise his arm by having the crook of my elbow in his armpit because he has a lot of strength in his armpit. I'm not able to use my leverage to my advantage to get his arms up above his head. So when you have mount position and you're trying to raise their arms above their head, the crook of your elbow going into the crook of their elbow, and then crawl your fingers up on the mat, and you'll see their arms come right up very, very easily. Now right here, I choose which arm I'm going to attack because I was able to raise up both arms at the same time. So it gives you a great advantage. Your opponent doesn't know which arm you're going to go for. I just chose to go for his right arm. Small little details here on the S-mount armbar. My right leg is in his armpit with my foot over by where his ear is at. My left leg is going to try to come up by his ear right here, the purpose of which I want his arm in my hips, lined up with my hips. This does a couple things. It does not allow him to bring his arm back down to the mat to defend, and it allows me to have my hips ready to go and extend once I'm able to straighten out the arm. The other thing is, you'll notice I'm not sitting on my butt. Everything is elevated, everything is up and putting pressure in this direction. I'm going pressure-wise this direction. I've got a lot of pressure on my left leg, and my left leg pressure is sitting right on his chest. Doesn't allow him to move. I've adjusted my knee better now. You see it's up by his ear right here. Again, my butt is not on the mat just yet. I want this leg over, and then I'm actually going to hook one of his legs here to get him into a spiderweb position, so this way he can't adjust and escape from me. I take my time here as always. Once you get in a really good position, take your time. You'll see here my butt is now touching, but I haven't gotten my leg over. It's okay though, because I'm holding his leg. Now I'm able to extend the arm out right here, 2 hands on one, and we get the tap. We take it back a little bit here. You'll see that my butt does touch the mat before my leg gets over. What you really want to do is you want to get to a point to where you're actually able to get the leg over before your butt touches the mat. This way it prevents your partner from coming up. Now, if you're not able to, for whatever reason, guys bigger than you, stronger than you, whatever the reasons, if you can hook the leg right here, this is fantastic as well, because it's going to stop him from being able to plant his leg on the mat to bridge you up and stack you up and possibly defend it. So you could do that as well too. Grab the leg, and then I bring the leg right over and I start to extend right here. Once I have 2 hands on one, I immediately want to bring my body from being lined up with his arm right here to over in this direction. The reason that I want that is here he can still somewhat fight the arm bar using a lot of strength, but if I bring it in this direction, it's very difficult for him to be able to fight the arm bar. And you'll see right here, he gives it up and he taps. So we'll continue on with the roll right now. We're going to start again. And again, you're going to see I like to go 1 hand on the collar, 1 hand on the sleeve. I'm not letting him get the grips. You'll see there where I'm grip fighting. I don't like to let my opponents get grips on me. Again, 1 hand on the collar. Now I switch to a 2-on-1 grip here. What this does is I get the 2-on-1 and I start dragging him across my body. I want to get to an angle because when you're in the guard, you can attack better from angles. Angles is everything when you're playing the guard game. My opponent is doing some good defense here. He's keeping his hands in my armpit. And you'll see when I go back and I start to talk about the things, that's going to be one of the big things that I preach when you're in somebody's guard who's attacking you very well. Right here, I've got the 2-on-1 grip. My opponent's doing pretty well, though. He's able to get one of my feet trapped. I make space, always making space, giving space away. Here, I decide to go for a switch, able to come up on top and get into a back position here. You can't see it, but I'm fighting to get a good grip on his hand so I can try to take his back right here. I have double lapel grip right here. I'm just going to pause it and take it back a little bit because I know people watching this are going to say, but wait, James, you've got your feet crossed. I do have my feet crossed here. Crossing your feet when you have someone's back, it's not necessarily a bad thing to do. It's taught to beginners to never cross your feet because you can be ankle locked from that position if your opponent catches you. As you guys train more and more, though, you're going to realize that you can cross your feet in certain scenarios once you have more experience, time, and you're aware of what you're doing. You'll see here I'm using it more or less just for control, and then I open it back up and I let go of the cross once he starts to get into a better position. Right here, you're going to see something I like to do. If my opponent puts their back to the mat while I'm sort of trying to get my grips here, or I feel them escaping me, I always take my leg that's on top of them and I hook that foot on their far hip. If you watch Sparring Narration video episode 1, I break that down a little bit more in depth in terms of how you can use that leg to transition yourself into a mount position and attack your opponent from mount. Here you'll see I do that transition right here, and I come up into mount, and I begin to attack my opponent right here. The round's going to end in a few seconds. So that's what I was doing. Now, what could my opponent have done a little better? Well, let's go back to the beginning, and let's take it from his perspective right now. I'm a big advocate of, if you're starting on the knees, which you should try to start standing as much as you can when you train jiu-jitsu, it's just a better overall training experience for you. But if you've got to start from the knees, you should definitely take the initiative of establishing grips, like my opponent's doing here. He's getting his grips, but he's making a big mistake here. You see how he's on his knees right here? This is the worst thing you can do right here, getting grips and being on your knees. Because what it does is it just opens you up to being off balanced if your opponent is changing directions in their guard, whether they're using a butterfly guard, whether they're using a closed guard, or whether they're arm dragging. You're not athletic. He doesn't have any of his weight on me. Right here, I can easily break his hand grips because he doesn't have any of his body weight on top of me. All of his body weight is sitting right here back on his legs. It's not being used. It's not advantageous to him. He does a good job of breaking the grips that I have on him, but again, he's sitting all of his weight back. All I really have to do is come up and it teeters him over. And you see right here, he toppled over because he didn't have good weight distribution. He wasn't off of his knees. So just a small tip, you guys start off, a lot of academies start off on the knees, or you got a lot of people in the room. Try to get your grips and get off your knees. You don't have to be, try to get into a tripod stance, but be hovering. Have the weight that's in your lower body transferred into your upper body, into your opponent's legs where you have the grip. And you're going to see a lot of good things happen in terms of being able to shut down their hip mobility and getting into better positions. So right here, he immediately concedes the bottom. Some things he could have done a little bit better. And one of the things I always advise the beginner belts to do is bring your elbows to your knees. Whenever somebody is passing your guard or they get you in a bad position, elbows to knees. You want to be as if, you turn a dog on their back and they have their elbows are in and the knees are close to the elbows. That's what you want to be thinking anytime you're in a bad position. You do not want to be spread open when the guy is passing your guard, because it makes you much weaker and much easier to be manipulated. So you see right here how I'm grabbing his arms. His arms are spread out. Elbows to knees. If he has his elbows to his knees, I can't just manipulate his arms that easily. It also gives him the ability to frame easier and make bridging motions. Right here, what could he do? You've got to get your elbow to the mat. Or you've got to take my right leg and you've got to get it in between your legs. Ideally, you want to be trying to do both when you're stuck in that S-mount position, is to get their leg in between your legs and get your elbow to the mat. Come up as soon as you get that elbow to the mat. He's not going to be able to tap you. You've got to make sure you keep your chin tucked, though, because you're going to be open to a triangle. So as you can see right here, I'm controlling his leg. He should be trying to get that elbow to the mat. He also should not be allowing, and he does it just here, he should not be allowing my left leg to go over his head. You see briefly he fights the leg off, but I've already got a really good grip in here and his arms are being extended. And it's not a good look. Another thing you can do too, if you're sort of stuck in that position, is instead of grabbing your hands, grab your gi collar. Grab your gi collar because what it does is it just gives you a better anchoring point when you're fighting off that arm bar. It also gives you a little slack in your arm, and slack is good in the sense that if there's a lot of tension when you're gripping and when he's trying to break your grip, it's going to make your grip break quicker. If you've got a little bit of slack there from grabbing your own gi collar, it's going to make it a little bit harder for them to be able to break your grip and give you a little bit of time to be able to fight it off. So we're going to start over again. And same scenario here. We're starting from the knees. You want to get off your knees. You want to get a grip on your opponent. He's got his right hand gripping on my pant leg. Ideally, you want that grip a little higher, though. You want it by the knee. Now, right here, he's starting to do it. He's starting to get a little bit off his knees, but you've got to do more than that. When the guard is open like this, you've got to tripod up. You've got to get a knee in the middle, and you've got to be aggressive in terms of really staying out from their guard. Don't let somebody pull you into their guard without making them earn it. They've got to earn that right to be able to attack you from their closed guard. So make it as difficult as you can. Fight for every inch. A lot of it starts again with being off the knees. You'll notice here, he's trying to open my guard, but he's off his knees. He's on his knees, excuse me. You've got to be off your knees. You've got to be tripoded and floating up. That's what's going to give you a good advantage. I'll hit the switch here, and another example of what I'm talking about being on the knees. You'll see my opponent when I go for the switch. He's not going to be able to counter it because he's on his knees right here. Right here, what could he have done? Kick this leg right out here and face into me. Bring me back into a half guard, bring me back into a full guard, and have good frames up. Have that elbow to knee that I was talking about a little bit earlier when you turn into me. And what that's going to do is it's not going to allow me to come and cross face you, and it's going to allow you to recomposition the guard. Now I go here, I go for his back. He's got a good advantage right here. A portion of his back is on the mat. When you get into those situations, you've really got to get your full back to the mat when somebody has your back. Bring the arm over and try to get him into a half guard or into a full guard again. So that's going to wrap up this episode. It was a little bit long, but there was a lot of good material, I think, in there for you guys to take away from it. If you like what you saw, make sure that you like and subscribe on the channel. Every Tuesdays, we're going to try to have some sparring narration videos up for you guys. Until next time.